You've unlocked a Roundtable.
Welcome to the Lost Levels Roundtable discussion of Krampus. My name is Chris. With me, as always, is Alex.
Hello.
And we just watched Krampus this weekend.
Indeed we did.
We kind of just want to do our review of it. And in our Roundtable reviews, we don't go into spoilers at the beginning. We'll do a full-fledged non-spoiler review. Then after our sign-off and credits, we'll go into a spoiler discussion where we go more in depth and share actual plotline stuff where we can talk about it a little bit more freely.
Yeah, our conversation was a little more free-flowing at that point.
I really enjoy those conversations. We
hope you do too.
Yeah, so definitely if you don't want to be spoiled on Krampus and go watch it, come back to the podcast and listen to the spoiler section. So that's where we kind of have the most fun talking about our movies and our game reviews. So that being said, Krampus, the 2015 version. I guess there's been a few versions. Krampus is the hotness right now, apparently.
Yeah, because isn't Kevin Smith trying to create a series based off of Krampus as well?
There was talk about that. Like, he wrote a script for it. I don't know.
It was supposed to be like a trilogy, I think.
I don't know where that project is. I meant to look it up before we recorded this, so because I knew it was going to come up. It's just in the nature of the beast, because like we've heard it.
Yeah.
For like a couple of years now.
It seems that way.
And then
I feel like we talked about it when the news came up originally. Right,
and we thought that this might have been that project when we first heard about it.
But, that's the way Hollywood works sometimes. A lot of times whether it's just synchronicity or whatever, but all these studios come up with the same idea at the same time.
It's hilarious, because like you'll have like one studio like, yeah, we're going to do a Krampus movie. So the other studio like across the street is like, oh, they're doing a Krampus movie? Fuck that, we're doing a Krampus movie too.
It's not even that. Sometimes it's just a matter of the fact that for whatever reason, there's something in the air, something in the water where people want to make this movie or this TV show. I mean, I recently heard, discussions of this happening in the TV world where people submitted a spec script for something and it was never made because they're like, well, we just got a spec script for something very similar. And it was just two separate entities that never talked to each other, just came up with the same idea at the same time. Like, it happens sometimes.
I don't know. With Hollywood, it kind of goes in trends, though. Like, they'll do, like, the disaster movie trend, so each studio has to have their own disaster movie.
Deep Impact and Armageddon.
Yeah, stuff that's very similar to each other. It's just, it's always been Hollywood's way that they always have to try to capitalize on the hot thing. And I feel like this year, Krampus is the hot thing. Because there's also been several B movies that came out.
Were there?
There's like at least 2 or 3 different B movies that also came out this year with Krampus involved, and it's obviously the thing. So
okay,
this is the mainstream one. This is the one that came out in theaters, not the direct-to-video kind. And
so ideally, the good kind. Ideally,
yeah, good enough to make a theater run.
Right. Like, there's production value behind this with names that you know.
Yeah.
Weird names in this, though, I would think.
Weird names? What do you mean?
I mean, just the people you wouldn't expect to be in this movie. Like Adam Scott.
Okay, yeah. Adam Scott is a interesting choice.
And David Koechner. Like, these are two comedy guys, and the fact that they're in this kind of horror-type genre...
Right.
Is surprising. But, okay, well, before we get into that, let's talk about what Krampus is. Krampus is the idea, it's the shadow of Santa. It is the dark version of Santa for people who are not good, who do not have the Christmas spirit. He comes and fucks with their world.
In a very negative way.
Yes, very much so. Like, you do not want Krampus to come visiting you Christmas Eve.
Yeah. So, he has his little merry elves the same way Krampus...
He has elves. I'm calling them merry.
He has his own elves with their own motives and these demented toys.
Right.
And pretty much wreaks havoc for you.
That's essentially the case here.
Yeah. So, the director is Michael Dougherty. He's known for, like, writing a lot of successful scripts. He wrote some of X-Men Apocalypse, Trick or Treat, which is another successful horror flick, I would say.
A horror flick based on a holiday.
Worked on the Superman Returns screenplay. Worked on Urban Legends, X-Men 2 screenplay. So
Superman Returns, as in the what year is that?
that's the Singer one.
The Singer one, yeah, okay. It's saying that's successful is kind of a stretch.
Okay, fine.
It's a bigger name. I will give you that.
Name. So he's not writing like little things or anything like that. So
right.
I think that
he has some clout.
Yeah, I think the direction here was actually really good.
Yes.
I was surprised at how well that it was portrayed. He also does have a writing credit on this, so he was involved with the writing aspects to it.
Okay.
And honestly, I thought before we go into the actors and stuff like that, I actually enjoyed how well it captured the how I feel the spirit of Christmas has become.
Yes. That this, I think, is the shining moment of the movie in the sense of the corruption of Christmas and the weight some people feel it on them, the family aspects of it and how it hurts the family. Almost.
Yeah, because it almost feels like, Christmas is just this kind of afterthought. It's more of like, you have to get together with your family. These are people you don't necessarily like, but you put up with because it's the holidays.
Because it's family and you share the DNA and you kind of have to.
Right, and this is something that's kind of personal for me because it's something that I've been dealing with regarding Thanksgiving and this year's Christmas on a personal note. So I found it really refreshing seeing my plight conveyed on screen.
And I feel like this is the plight of many others. There's a sense of obligation for the holidays. And, there's people who are very family oriented, like I am. Like, I love my family, I get along with my family and everything. But, then there's people like you, and you don't necessarily hate your family, but at the same time, you like keeping them at arm's length.
It's, okay. Not to go into, super personal stuff, obviously, but, with family, I have certain members of my family that I appreciate and then I consider family, and then I have extended family.
Right.
And I don't really try to recognize that extended family or go out of my way to recognize it, because it's just I talk to my friends more. I talk to a stranger on the street more. I only see these type of people during funerals or weddings or something like that. So
right.
I don't necessarily have a vested interest in seeing
right.
them during the holidays.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. So, that's just how I kind of feel about it. So, I thought it was really interesting seeing a screenplay that was smart enough to show, the frustrations of Christmas and how people feel on a personal level regarding certain members of the family. It's like, yeah, you know what? You only have to put up with them for a few days. Suck it up and do it. My personal thing is no, why do I need to do that? I shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
But it makes more sense. I'm just very negative about it, but you should do that. You should tolerate people and put up with it for the most part, just for the holiday aspects to it. So
But in the same sense, this movie shows how corrupt the holidays have become. So it drives home just how bass backward that seems. It's
yeah.
They start off with a Black Friday scene
yeah.
of people getting knocked over and trampled, and kids crying, and people fighting over stuff, and getting tased by security guards, and toys getting ripped apart because they're fighting over it.
Right.
And that's that shows the level of corruption that is underlying in our society, and what brings us to this point in the movie.
Yeah, essentially it's just consumerism at its absolute worst, where you see the ugly side of Black Friday and the holiday season shopping experience. So, again, a very justified telling of how it is nowadays.
Yes, and, that's not necessary including everything in the Christmas spirit. There is the idea of giving and stuff like that I think still exists to a degree, but there is also the whole idea of consumerism, which just seems like it casts a dark shadow over everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they show different ends of the spectrum. That's why I liked it. Like I liked the smartness of the screenplay because they show like the ugly side of the consumerism. They show the parents being kind of
distant and distracted.
Yeah, distant and distracted, and to the point of like, oh hey, we bought a bunch of cookies. Don't have to worry about baking these. While the grandmother is sitting there like
Slaving, yes,
painstakingly slaving over making all of these holiday things that are probably her tradition, something that she's done her whole entire adult life to
even
celebrate the holidays.
Not even adult, her childhood probably as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have my grandmother who recently passed was the same exact way. She always made Christmas cookies. She would always do
my mom's the same way. Yeah,
great traditions for the holidays that kind of, despite all of the bullshit that we kind of do nowadays as a society, it was always refreshing to have that shining light.
Yeah, my friend Kim, she every year she has an annual cookie exchange party where everyone brings in cookies and we swap them, and she stipulates no store-bought cookies because there's that tradition that gives it that personal touch and that personal care that you expect from the holidays.
Yeah. So I really actually enjoyed that line where you see the grandmother making cookies and then Adam Scott's character is like, oh, you don't have to worry about it because Sarah has made...
She bought a bunch of cookies.
She bought a bunch of cookies.
Which is perfect because he does it in such a throwaway manner as well. So there's not a lot of light brought to it, but like it's just there and present enough that you're like, that's pretty shitty.
Yeah, and that's the beauty behind a smart screenplay. Mm-hmm. Is the fact that you can have these like throwaway lines, but they're so poignant in today's society. Like, yeah, this is a telling line that is essentially not a big deal, but we're still saying it, and that's why I really liked it. So I picked up on that right away. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Totally. And you amongst all this, you really start to feel for the kid Max because, he's this person that wants to believe and wants to have that Christmas spirit. And you see it just, his hopes and dreams getting trampled on through all of this. And you really start to feel for the kid. And you empathize with him a lot. And you kind of understand what he's going through.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so, okay. Why don't we get into the characters a little bit, where you kind of talked on Max. Max was a really strong character for this. I think that he had to carry it because he was the shining light, as we kind of talk about.
He had that childlike innocence that wasn't corrupt.
Yeah.
Yes.
So meanwhile, you have like his sister who doesn't necessarily care as much about Christmas. She cares more about spending time with her boyfriend. You have the cousins come over who are just
bullies,
absolutely mean to him.
Right.
And he's just trying to sit there, trying to survive and still have hope.
And, he's trying to be pleasant and cordial to them because they're family and he wants to have that respect towards them and they just don't reciprocate it.
Yeah, I mean, the other family is the stereotypical...
kind of white trash.
Yeah, you kind of want to go white trashish.
I mean, I don't want to toss that phrase out, but it's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, no manners. The dad is very vocal in his opinions.
Yeah, camouflage gear on, carrying guns in their Hummer.
Yeah, I mean, it really it doesn't, you don't have to stretch the imagination of what type of person this is.
Right.
Because they hit every cliche possible. For that family. So it's their family is kind of one-dimensional in that regard.
Yeah.
So once they enter
they go a little deeper, I think, as the story progresses, and you do build some character and depth to them. But at face value, yes, they are very much that family.
Yeah, and this is, a holiday horror movie, so you're not exactly looking for character development.
Right. It's like from Christmas Vacation. What's...
Eddie?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that type of family.
Yeah, I mean, essentially that's exactly...
It is that trope.
Right, so they didn't break any new things here. following all those tropes, which is okay because this is
because as Krampus appears, it takes it and twists it in a dark manner.
Right.
So you want to have that familiarity with it to jump as a jumping off point.
Well said. That's why it works. That's why those tropes work, because you're playing on those tropes because they're based in reality, and the whole reason you have those types of tropes is why Krampus is here to begin with. So it totally makes sense to have those types of tropes in here. So it's not, to me, like a lazy screenwriting or a lazy writing, because it's what's needed for the script to be strong.
Totally.
If
totally
this
agree.
was a different type of movie and it was those types of characters, then there'd be a different conversation that we're having.
Yeah, it's just going to be a rehashing of movies we've seen before.
Right. So that was really interesting. I liked a lot of the writing here, which is weird coming from a horror movie, because for me personally, I'm not a big horror movie fan. I don't watch a lot of horror movies. I don't necessarily get into them.
It's same here. I mean, there's those subsect of people that just they live, breathe, and just crave horror movies.
Right, and rightfully so. People like every different genre of everything, and kudos to that. That genre of movie doesn't really interest me as much. So watching Krampus was mostly because of the Lost Level podcast. It wasn't because I wanted to actively go see it. And it took me a week to finally go, all right, I need to go see it.
Yeah. And, and that's being said, even though we're not major horror movie genre people, I feel like we can still appreciate a good one. I mean, listen to our previous discussion about It Follows, a fantastic movie that we raved about because it is a really good horror movie.
Right.
So once you find those, yes, we're going to talk about it and we're going to like it, but we're not popping these like, popcorn or anything like that. We take them selectively.
Yeah, we're very selective in that genre, but like for us as a podcast trying to expand, we're trying to broaden our horizons and get into watching some movies that aren't necessarily in our comfort zone or in our wheelhouse, to learn more about film and to be able to critique stuff a little bit better. So we're talking about these movies that we don't necessarily have a lot of background knowledge on, but we still enjoy.
Yes.
So with Krampus, I was really surprised at how well it was written.
Very well written, and like you said, very well directed. A lot of the scenes were shot incredibly well. And I mean, a lot of them held great weight to them. But so I mean, going off from the family is basically what happens is Max he starts to lose his Christmas spirit because of the turmoil within his family.
Right.
And then Krampus appears, and that's when the craziness starts to happen.
Yeah. And once the craziness starts to happen, this goes full-blown type of horror flick.
Yeah. I mean, I once again, this is just me not being so familiar with the horror genre, but I feel like a lot of the tension that the scenes wanted to have wasn't there from what I would expect from a horror movie.
What do you mean?
It just they're trying to create these. Well, they're trying to create these scenes where there's supposed to be, like I said, a lot of tension. You're supposed to be worried for these people, but I think like this is just my problem with the horror genre, which I can't really feel that very often because I do feel such a disconnect with everything that's going on because it's a horror movie and it's so unbelievable for me. I don't know.
That what do you mean? Like you just can't
I can't suspend my disbelief.
Okay. So
you're
sitting there kind of just like, oh God, like
yeah,
what's going on?
Essentially, like
okay. I don't know. Like I'm great at getting into the moment, and for this movie, I wasn't drawn out of it nearly as much as I am with a lot of films that we review, where there's noticeable parts where like, oh God, seriously? like what's that movie we saw in the trailer? The Kevin Hart movie.
Ride Along too?
Yeah, so like you'll see like a bad joke in that, and that immediately takes you out of the movie. Like, oh god, okay, seriously, let's move on.
Right.
So then, like, I'm really good at being able to stay focused into a movie, but when it's something like that happens, it takes me immediately out of it, and I'm like, okay, I'm watching a movie. With Krampus, I wasn't really taken out very often, aside from crowd interference. But not from movie interference.
Yeah, yes, the audience. Unfortunately, the audience when we saw this movie was not a good audience to see the movie with because they talked a bunch and it was really annoying. And you know what, that could be part of the problem as well with me.
Yeah, because that's unfortunate because that does ruin a movie experience.
It does. And I wish people would be more considerate and realize that, but they don't.
No, so I was able to move past it and just really try to focus in on the movie, and I thought the beats hit really well, and I really thought that like I liked the progress of the story in terms of like you have the showing of how Christmas is today, the family coming in, stuff starting to happen. Waking up to a big, huge snow blizzard happening and trying to explore inside of that. I thought that was all really interesting stuff. I thought it was shot really beautifully.
Oh, incredible! Yeah, the lighting was great, and just some really incredible filmography right there.
Yeah, and I also appreciate it from a horror standpoint of I enjoy the horror films that don't necessarily have to show you the monster or show you everything full blown. I'd rather live in the mystery type of thing.
Yes, because you just do kind of see people being taken away or whatever, and you don't see what happens to them. And even with Krampus, you see, a lot of him silhouetted, and also wonderfully shot scenes.
Right, and like with him, like you don't actually get to see his face. You see a mask. He's wearing a mask, and then underneath it, you could kind of see his eye line.
Right,
and so he's like definitely wearing a mask. So it's interesting. It's like you're not really seeing what he would actually look like. You just know that he has hooves for feet
and a long snake-like tongue almost.
Yeah, so it's creepy enough that makes it interesting.
And he's menacing as well because he's just a hulking brute. He's just a solid block of fuck you, essentially.
Yeah, like it's definitely something that would give you nightmares. I really enjoyed the creature design.
The creature design was great, like down to his minions even and his elves. Like they're creepy and menacing, and just the face of the Jack in the Box was disturbing. Yeah. To such a degree. Like even when its jaws aren't open, just the regular face is like that's disturbing and unsettling.
Yeah, so I really applauded that. Like that's why I was totally into the movie. I was bought in.
Yeah,
which is surprising because like as I kind of mentioned here, horror movies aren't my thing. I will get out of a horror movie like I will mentally check out of a horror movie very quickly based on those tropes, based on like, oh god, why would that person act that way ever? You know what I mean?
Yes.
You always see that in those movies where you see like, oh god, why would that person act that way? You know they'd be running. Why would they trip? Why would they do all that stuff? So it immediately takes me out of the movie.
Yeah. And
with this,
it doesn't happen.
I was totally engaged.
All of it, their decisions make sense. It's them trying to protect their family, as they say throughout the movie. A shepherd must protect his flock, and that's what a lot of these decisions are based off of.
Based on a completely unknown entity. They don't know what's going on.
Yes.
They don't know how to handle it. All they know is must keep the fire hot from the grandmother.
Yes. And
so that's really all they're going on. And that's great. I think that was really important. That the fact that even when they try to explain Krampus to the audience through the grandmother's story,
which I love the way they did that as well. I love the whole animated claymation stop motion feel of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed the animation scenes actually, and it's something that it can be very hit or miss when they go into those types of things where it's automatic or it transitions from like a live action to a backstory of an animated,
a flashback type of thing.
Yeah, it can be hit or miss, but like in this case, it worked.
It worked very well because I think they did the style right, and it did have a very old worldy feel to it.
Oh yeah,
which was important to capture that because this is talking about the grandmother's experience when she was a child. So,
and then even after she explains the story, they still don't know necessarily what to do because obviously they don't necessarily believe her. Because like, who would believe in
Krampus?
Something being real like that. In this reality, they don't believe Santa exists. They don't none of this supernatural stuff happens or anything like that. So why would Krampus exist? So they're just kind of just nodded off like, yeah, whatever. And then all hell kind of is going on until they start seeing shit for themselves, and it's like, oh, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
Which was really done really well, I thought.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have compared this to a Gremlins type feel, and you get that in some scenes, but I think few enough that I don't feel it's ripping off Gremlins in any way. I think it still feels very fresh and very original for that.
Yeah, and I also heard that I watched a couple of reviews before going into this movie just to see like what the people that I listened to what they thought of the movie, and a few of them actually mentioned the same thing, the Gremlins references, where they kind of had that feel to it. And I didn't necessarily have that feel, but I appreciated it from that same level of Gremlins where,
there was a bit of camp to it.
Yeah.
Particularly the kitchen scene with the nail gun and David Koechner.
Maybe that's what it really was.
And I think it was just that scene by itself. I think any of the scenes with the gingerbread men.
Okay. I really like the first time that you see a gingerbread man. that was good. I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but yeah, I it's little things like that. Like as the story's progressing, it just I thought it was really smartly. It was a tight film. Like there wasn't a lot of loose stuff in there that like, oh, that could have been cut out.
Right. They kept it at a tight 140, right?
Yeah, and
hour 40,
and it felt good. It felt like a good length. It felt like it didn't. We didn't walk out of there saying, "Oh, they could have easily trimmed 20 minutes."
No,
of that film. I thought that it was good.
Good pace. It kept going. It kept pedaling. I didn't. All the scenes felt important, whether it was building tension or building family camaraderie and togetherness, and
establishing backstory and establishing everything and establishing this universe that they need to. So yeah, they did a good job with that. So is there anything else that you want to talk about during the main part here before we go into our spoiler section?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so final thoughts. What do you think?
Final thoughts. This is, obviously a solid new movie, that takes something you're used to and turns it on its head, something you're not quite expecting, and it does a lot of things very well and in such a smart manner that I really appreciate the writing and the directing from it. So I think this is a movie you definitely do need to watch. I don't think it's one you really had to see in theaters, but definitely worth a rental at the very least.
Yeah, if you're running out of stuff to watch during this holiday season, obviously, if you're listening to this, Star Wars is happening this week, so you might be preoccupied with that. I would definitely go see Star Wars.
Yeah, or if you can't get a ticket to Star Wars, because they're all sold out.
Very good. Krampus would be a good backup, man.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed it more than I expected to. I really, honestly, genuinely, from the heart, expected to be bored. And going through this podcast, just going by the numbers and not really caring about this movie at all. But I was surprisingly entertained by it.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how, for a horror movie, how well it was made.
Yeah.
I thought that it was a good opening to a universe where they can expand on and create more stuff inside of this universe that doesn't need to be tied to any certain individuals by any means, aside from Krampus. But I think that they established a really good thing.
Yeah, and you know what? One thing I do want to touch on, I forgot, is the acting is really good in this, especially from these comedic actors, which are used to seeing them in these roles. Putting them in this situation, I think they do a really good job, and I really appreciate that from that aspect as well, because they are breaking out of their comfort zone and still doing a really good job at it.
Yeah. Adam Scott did a really good job. Toni Collette did a good job. She plays the mother. Overall, I think they do some solid work in here. This is just an overall pretty decent film. I'm honestly surprised to say that.
Yeah. Like it's probably not going to be one of my top 5 of the year, but definitely something that I would like to go back and revisit later.
Oh yeah, I would definitely watch this again. Definitely interested, entertained. So if there's something that you like Alex said, kind of perfect. Star Wars might be sold out for you when you get to the theater. If you have something on the backup plan, go check out Krampus. You might enjoy it. So I would definitely recommend watching this. Maybe not in a theater, or definitely checking out a matinee or watching or renting it.
Yeah. Totally good for matinee pricing, I would say.
Yeah. Very entertaining. So that being said, we both recommend checking this out. And Alex, how can we reach you?
Oh, you could follow me on Twitter. My name there is Alex Sandberg, AlexSandberg, or email me directly at the website, alex@lostlevel.com. And what about you, Chris?
I am on twitter.com/calmintensity. I have been tweeting more. I've been trying to tweet more. It's really hard for me to think of stuff to say. So I am.
Say what's in your heart.
I am working on it.
Your black heart. Say what's in there.
So I am working on my Twitter game, and it's not strong at all right now, but I'm working on it. So definitely check me out. Calm Intensity again on Twitter. I have an Instagram that I opened up to the public because I don't really care at this point. It's Chris's Calm. And then we also, Lost Level is on social media pretty much everywhere at this point. So if you want to find out all our links for that, go to lostlevel.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you have links to it. We're also on YouTube, where we're trying to expand and do some exclusive stuff to YouTube. So subscribe to us on there. We'd really appreciate that. And we are also on iTunes. Give us a like or was it stars on that?
Rate us.
Yeah, rate us, subscribe to us. We'd really appreciate it. So thanks again for listening, and hang on for spoilers.
Spoilers.
All right, you have been warned. This is the spoiler section where we get into the nitty-gritty of Krampus. So where do you want to start?
Oh, that's a good question.
It is. I don't really have a lot to really go into. Like, a lot of times it's hard for me to talk about a movie without spoilers, because there's direct stuff that I want to talk about.
Okay, fine. Well, let's talk about the end then, because I feel like the end is probably the most important thing to talk about, and how they dealt with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
end first. Do it.
I mean, essentially, you start seeing everyone picked off one by one, and by the end, all that's left is Max. And he confronts Krampus and is like, "Hey, give my family back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wish them away. Take me instead." And you think this is the turning point where Krampus gives everyone back, and he's just like, "Nope, you're joining them," and drops them into a fiery pit. And then he wakes up in a nice, pleasant house where everyone is enjoying Christmas morning. And it's like, oh, okay, everything's back to normal. Then it's like, nope, they're trapped in a snow globe.
Yeah, it's like a thought, or like a memory trapped in a snow globe of how it used to be.
It's like that that one TV show, Saint Elsewhere.
Yeah, how I don't know how it ended.
It apparently, really? Yeah. Okay, the idea of Saint Elsewhere, it's a like hospital movie, okay. And in the last episode, it pulls out, and there's this autistic kid looking at a snow globe of the hospital, and it basically insinuates that the whole show took place inside of this autistic kid's mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to look that one up. Yeah, it wasn't like a dream sequence or anything. It was just, I like that aspect of it, because then as you pull away from the snow globe, you pull into Krampus's lair,
right?
And you see all these
snow globes everywhere for days. Snow globes.
Yeah, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, but it's like it's weird because like they pull you into like this false sense of almost like a Deus Ex Machina, where weird shit happens and everything turns out perfectly and everyone's happy. Yeah,
you go into these movies and you have to expect, all right, there's going to be some way that they defeat Krampus.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And not the case.
No, it's very, very different in this sense because, you know, it's quote unquote Christmas morning for them and everything seems pleasant and just the way, you know, Max wanted it to be, you know, which was his one desire. He just wanted everything to be back the way it was. And he opens up that gift and it's the Krampus bell. And one by one, everyone starts to realize and remember what happened, it seemed like, right? There's this...
It's ominous the way that it's portrayed. Like, it's kind of open up to speculation.
Cause like, he opens that and he sees it and everyone's face just kind of... It just drops and, like, the color rushes from their face and they all kind of... It seems like they just realize, like, oh shit, that's right, almost.
Yeah, I don't really know how to perceive how that ending is.
There is ambiguity to go with it.
Yeah, like now do they realize all of a sudden like this isn't real?
I think I don't know.
Are we supposed to expect that life goes on in these snow globes, or is it always going to be like a Groundhog's Day experience where it's always Christmas morning? What the person wanted to wish for all the time, the happy ending that is trapped forever inside of this snow globe. Like, is it that?
Well, I mean, they don't go into it, but I mean, like it's left to interpretation. I think that's the way it would be almost.
Right. Yeah. So like, I don't necessarily know where to go with it, and I like that. I like the fact that it's like it's not exactly telling you what to think or how to feel about it, but it opens up to so much more. Because now, if Krampus is successful and becomes like a following or has a following behind it, there's easy ways for them to do a different family, to go into a whole entire different scenario that's a different snow globe.
Yeah, and it could hit on other different holiday themed tropes.
So I like that aspect of it. I was surprised. I was happily surprised by the ending.
Yeah, I was unsure about it at first, how I felt, but the more I thought of it, I was like, you know what, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and especially for the horror movie genre, which is notorious for having sequel after sequel, where it's like, motherfucker, no, Jason's head, or Mike Myers' head got cut off, like, there's no way he's still alive, what's going on? It makes sense that, you know, in this, Krampus is the victor.
Yeah, essentially. And I like the setup too. I think the setup was really smart, where the grandmother was talking about her experience with Krampus and how Krampus let her live when she was a child because she was the one that made that wish. So I'm like, all right, cool. So the same exact thing is going to happen to the kid. And it essentially kind of does until he goes to plead with Krampus. Then Krampus is like, all right, fuck you. I'm grabbing you and like, I'm throwing you into a pit.
Krampus doesn't give a fuck.
Right. And that's why I liked it. And that's where I really enjoyed the fact, like, okay, this is not trying to follow a strict pattern or a strict storyline.
Yes, very much so. And, that threw me off so much that it did take me a while to really stop and think about it. And because I'm not used to it. And shit, we need more of that. We need more of things that we're not used to in movies because stuff has become so predictable and we expect these things to happen. I was not expecting that ending.
Right.
And I'm happy that I didn't expect it.
Exactly.
No.
That was the refreshing moment for me because my brain is telling me, okay, well, he's letting the kid live because he let the grandma live. So when that person, whoever makes the wish, survives
right, because he kind of like wipes the tear off his face. You're like, okay, I see where this is going, and it's like, nope. Wrong, motherfucker.
Yeah, so then in my head, even as it's going on, even as Krampus grabs him and throws him into that pit, my brain is still fighting what I watched, thinking, okay, so this pit is resetting time.
Mm-hmm.
So then automatically I'm thinking this reset time, we sure as shit, next scene, see the kid waking up Christmas morning. I'm like, okay, it reset time. Now, now is this kid going to remember the events, or is this just going to be a brand new day for him? So I'm thinking about it from that, and then all of a sudden, the reveal of the Krampus bell inside of the present and the ominous feel to it is like, oh shit, so that actually did happen. Oh wow, Krampus did say fuck you, you're dead now.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome.
It's really good.
So I was really genuinely surprised and happy by that. Because I was fighting it the whole entire time in my mind.
Yeah.
Because you expect that happy ending. Because that's what audiences want. That's what audiences expect. So my brain is expecting that.
Yeah.
So it's always refreshing to see those movies that kind of take that detour, to throw that something in at the end that's kind of different. That's why M. Night Shyamalan had success in his early days.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
But yeah, it was very interesting in that regard, and that's why it really made me appreciate this movie a lot more.
I totally agree with you on that, yeah.
I really don't have anything else to say about it, aside from that.
No, not really. I think one of my only qualms is I wish the sister didn't get killed off so immediately, because I feel like the relationship between her and Max could have been explored a lot further, hopefully, because, I mean, he alludes to it in that letter where, I wish things would have, between me and, whoever her name was, Beth, maybe? Whoever the sister's name was, I wish things between us could be like they used to be. And I think they could have explored that a little bit more to just added some more depth and compassion for the characters. Especially for the sister, because I think that the sister was a good-hearted person that is corrupted by the shittiness of today's society. Well, I mean, she goes out, yes, to see her boyfriend, but at the same time, she is worried about her boyfriend. So it sounds like, oh, we're going to smoke up and bone or so she's genuinely worried. So she goes out there in the what I feel a pure nature sense. So I wish we would have explored her character a little bit more. Yeah, and
someone has to set off the trigger of events. It's easiest to have the person who's outside of the house.
Yeah, that's true.
Have that. So, but you're right.
Unfortunately, that's the only way that could have gone down in that sense. But I would have liked to see her character a little bit more.
Yeah, I did like her, because she did have those good values despite of all the bullshit. Like, she was trying to defend her brother's feeling. And she openly showed compassion for his letter as their douchebag cousins were reading it out loud to everybody.
She was trying to play, the ambassador, trying to keep everything cool, but once, things went over the line, she was like, no, fuck it, cool, if this is my brother, you don't mess with him like that.
Yeah, so I liked her too. I overall, man, I really liked this movie.
Yes, very good movie. Definitely recommend it. Like we said earlier, probably not, full price, but at least matinee. At the very least, a matinee.
Yep, absolutely. So definitely check that out. That's pretty much it. So we will talk to you guys next time.
Bye.